Hello, fight fans. I'm that boxing writer, Jeremy Harridges, and thank you for watching this video. If you've never watched any of my videos before, I'm a contributing boxing writer for Fansided.com, been published numerous places, and I'm just a boxing writer who's taking to the camera to connect with fellow fight fans and just to talk about boxing. And today, we do have a lot to talk about because we are just a few hours away from Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. Who imagined that we'd ever be talking about this? Before we do our deep dive, if you could please click and subscribe. Also, if you could give this video and others a like. And yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you guys very much. So let's talk about it. Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. I'm really curious to hear what you all have to say about it. So my first question to you watching, are you going to buy this fight? Why or why not? That's what I'm really curious to hear. If you don't know, I have a weekly Sunday boxing column on fansided.com/boxing that's called After the Fight. And basically what I do in the column is I take a look at the weekend action and I look for some sort of storyline that's most engaging from it. Whatever I saw that I think needs to be talked about further, that's what I go into. So I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. So please, I would love to include some of your perspectives, some of your voices within my piece. If you'd be so kind, if you could comment below, that would be amazing. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you're watching it on Twitter or Instagram, if you could comment below, tell me, are you buying the fight? Why or why not? And then if you could return to this and tell me what you thought about it afterwards. I'm really curious to hear what everybody has to say about this before and after. That's the big piece of the puzzle. Now, if I'm asking the question, then you know I'm going to have to answer it and give you my 2 cents on it. Am I buying the fight? Yes. There's a couple reasons behind that. Number one, I'm covering it for Fansided tonight, so I kind of have to watch it if I'm going to comment on it. That's part one. Part two, that it's involving Mike Tyson. Yes, he's 54 years old, but if it's involving Mike Tyson and it's a fight, I'm going to buy it. Mostly out of nostalgia. I think I've purchased, or at least, when I was a kid and I was watching these fights, my parents purchased just about every single Mike Tyson pay-per-view bout for me. I've always been fascinated, as so many people have been, with Mike Tyson. He's got a lot of depth when it comes to his backstory. Obviously, he's been heroic at times. He's been infamous. He's been sensational in all sorts of different ways. So I think there's just so many sides to Mike Tyson that I think as a person, he just fascinates everybody. That sensationalism, the sensationalism of the knockout, the sensationalism of what is he going to say next. He's just a fascinating person. And to this day, he's still one of the most marketable personalities in all of boxing. I know that there was a press release put out talking about how this is breaking all sorts of records for pre-orders, and I believe it. But I think it's also important that we think about why we want to watch this. If you're a fan of Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr., I hate to put him on the back burner here. I mean, Roy Jones Jr., one of the best boxers to ever do it, arguably the best in his prime. Who else can say that they won a title at middleweight and won a title all the way up through the heavyweight division? He, in his prime, was electric, was dynamic, was wonderful. Obviously, we're in different times now. We're far removed from all of that. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind. As far as what I'm expecting to see tonight, well, I'm really only buying it to see, hey, what's Mike Tyson have left, right? How is he going to look at 54? That's why I'm buying this fight. Do I expect him to look anywhere near the best professionals right now? No, not at all. I expect him to look like a 54-year-old in shape former champion. That's what I expect him to look like. And whenever you're talking about Mike Tyson, um, everyone always wonders about the knockout, right? Is the knockout going to come? I'm not really concerned with that tonight. I'm tuning in to see the show. What's he offering? How good of shape is he in? How good of shape is Roy Jones in? And I think we have to take a measured approach to this. There's been so much hype, and that's the thing. With a Mike Tyson fight, there's always hype. There's going to be that spectacle. Again, keyword, sensationalism. You're going to buy that because you want to see it. Most of the time during the later part of his career, there wasn't a whole lot of substance to it anymore, right? I'm thinking about Tyson Holyfield too. He didn't stand a chance. Then again, he also bit off Holyfield's ear. And then there is also the Tyson Lennox Lewis fight where, he said a lot of outrageous, outlandish things and couldn't produce. I mean, I think he landed between 40 and 60 punches in the entire fight, in which he got demolished. So now, here we are, all these years later. And when I say all these years, I mean all these years. What are we expecting out of this? I think that's what everyone's kind of questioning right now. I think if you're going to buy this fight, buy it for the right reasons. Buy it because you're a boxing fan, because you love Mike Tyson and you love Roy Jones, and you're supporting the proceeds going to charity, and you're curious about how they look at this stage in life, but don't put any added expectations on it. I know that a lot of people have been hyping this fight up, talking about how amazing Mike Tyson looks. I've heard all sorts of things about the way Mike Tyson looks, that he looks like the Mike Tyson of old, back like he was in his prime in his 20s. Listen, he's not in his 20s anymore. Here was Mike Tyson in his 20s. Here was Mike Tyson at the weigh-in just one day ago. It's not the same person. The same thing with Roy Jones Jr. Here, they are together for this fight. Mike Tyson is never going to look the way he did back when he was 20. He's probably not going to look the way he was when he's 30. And the reason being, it's because he's 54. Same thing with Roy Jones Jr. He's 51, going on 52, just a couple months away. Don't put a ridiculous expectation on these two former greats. That is not fair. Many have tried to beat Father Time. Father Time is undefeated. It doesn't happen. And when you're talking about a 54-year-old Mike Tyson and a 51-year-old Roy Jones Jr., it's no different. And we can see it. They're aged. Their backs, their knees, their joints, they're worn down. They were great warriors, but those times have passed. So don't talk about, Mike Tyson, possibly coming back and how would he fare against today's top heavyweights. Don't talk about that because it's not fair. He wouldn't fare well against any top 10 heavyweight right now. He's 54 years old. Roy Jones Jr. retired well beyond when he should have retired. Hey, if they still have something left in the tank, a la, Rocky VI, Rocky Balboa, then more power to you. They've earned the right to do what they want to do. They've earned the right to go out the way that they want to go out. But let's not heap a ridiculous expectation on them that somehow, some way, Mike Tyson is going to channel the best years of his youth. They're long gone. Now, could he still get a knockout? Sure he could. They always say the last thing that goes is your power. And I bet Mike Tyson still has power. And for that matter, I'm sure that Roy Jones Jr. could knock out a person very easily. But you're talking about a precise punch that needs to be landed. And you have to have the movement and the timing. Mike Tyson hasn't been in the ring in a serious fight, in a real fight, since 2005. That's a lot of ring rust. Now, you can talk about exhibitions and sparring and this, that, and the other. It's not the same thing. The last time he was in a competitive fight was in 2005 against Kevin McBride, and he got stopped in the 6th round. Roy Jones Jr., 2018, and he won a unanimous decision against somebody I've never heard of. Roy Jones should probably be the favorite in this. However, I think Mike Tyson's taken it a lot more serious, and just judging using the eye test, Mike Tyson looks like he's in better shape than Roy Jones Jr., but I'm not expecting a whole lot out of this fight. I think that they're going to try. I think they're going to put it all out there, and I don't think that they're going to find that their best can produce what it once did. They're going to hit each other. They're going to punch. This is boxing. But I don't see a knockout coming. I don't see the precision to land those punches. I think they're going to have a hard time moving around the ring. I think if you just looked at Roy Jones Jr. walking to the scale, you could see the age emanating off of him. He did not look like a fighter anymore. Mike Tyson still has that ferociousness with a much healthier perspective and frame of mind. And I champion him on. If he wants to go out and he's still got something to prove, and he's serious about this Legends Only League that he wants to start, and this is what makes him feel good, then do it. But let's not feed into that too much and heap all these expectations that somehow, some way, he's going to look like the same fighter he was back in 1990 or 1995 or 2000 or 2005. That's impossible. Even if he knocked out Roy Jones Jr., that doesn't really prove anything. That means he knocked out a more worn down individual than him. Watch it, enjoy it, reminisce, be nostalgic. But don't expect for two 50-year-old men to rehash the magic of their past. That only comes around once in a lifetime. They lived it. They will forever be immortalized in the history of boxing. But that was it. Enjoy it tonight. Have fun. Watch it. But don't expect too much. And don't put ridiculous expectations on them, because that's not fair. So, remember, before the fight, comment, let me know why you are buying the fight, what you expect to see tonight. After the fight, tell me your thoughts. Comment below, before and after, like, subscribe, and watch for my column tomorrow, probably somewhere around 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern is when it'll be out. Fansided.com/boxing. Hey, it's fight night. We're not going to get too many more Mike Tyson fight nights again. Or will we? Till next time, I'm that boxing writer, Jeremy C. Harridges, signing off. Have a good one.